So Carson Wentz brings the Eagles back, a hole that he kind of put them in. So what kind of grade does he get for the game? Grayson's grades are posted right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. Scott Grayson, Fox 29 and 97.3 ESPN.com. He joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. An ugly game, Scott, but a win is a win no matter how you can get it.
Yeah, they say an ugly win is better than a pretty loss. And, when you look in the standings, you understand that. But they paid a price for that win, but it was one they absolutely had to have. And, I got to be honest. I was sitting there asking myself, how is this game where it is as that third quarter went into the fourth quarter? And, somehow they pulled it out. And who knows? Honestly, Mike, you know what it reminded me of? That game felt like it did when Jake Elliott made the 61-yard field goal and they snatched victory from the jaws of what could have been defeat.
They went on to a special season that year. I don't know that the end will be similar for this team here, but let's ask about Carson Wentz. You gave him a B in the game. Obviously, you weigh heavily the last 7 minutes of that game.
Yeah, look, 2 70-plus yard scoring drives to bring the team back, down by 11 with over 5 minutes to go in the game. Look, that's got to matter. That's got to weigh something. He had to make some big throws. The throw to Hightower, that was a beautiful throw. You look at the passes that he put out there that even drew penalties that weren't completed. Those are big plays, and they're very important to being able to come back like that. Now, did Carson have a great game? No, he did not have a great game. And had they lost, it would have been a C or worse for sure. Still holding on to the ball too long. But, still throwing passes to guys that, would you have expected, if I told you at some point at the beginning of the season that, hey, the game against the Giants, Richard Rodgers is going to be the leading receiver, guys. It's bookmark it. You'd have laughed in my face. And, look, I think Carson Wentz is doing some things really well. Unfortunately, he's not doing it well for 4 quarters in a game, maybe not even 3 quarters in a game. And that's a problem. They're still turning the ball over. He's got a lot he's got to clean up. But, yeah, I did weigh his grade heavily based on the fact that he completed a fourth quarter comeback for a win that they absolutely had to have.
Yep, Doug Pederson's another guy. I thought they got out of the gates with a great plan, the 15 plays. But then after that, I'm asking, what's going on here? A lot of head-scratching plays. You gave him a C.
Yeah, I was asking myself the same thing, Mike. How do you come out and go on, finally open up the game by scoring on a nice, long, consistent drive? You featured Deshaun Jackson heavily, and then you don't even know the guys on the field at all anytime beyond. I found myself looking, is Deshaun Jackson still out there? They went totally away from him. I love the end-around call to start the game. I love getting him involved beyond that with some receptions. And then he wasn't around. And I don't know why they went away from that. I don't know why they went away from the tempo. They were running tempo, and it was working well. And then they never did it again until they kind of needed to at the end of the game. And look at that. It worked again. So, Doug shows the ability to, make some really good decisions in his game planning. He opened up with a good script, but then he never followed it up with sticking to something that worked. He kind of overthought it. And, look, I get why you put Sean Jackson back there, but it's his first game back. You see how important he is to the success of the team, and you risked injury on that punt return, and it got him. It bit him again, and I question whether that was the right call. I also wonder what he's doing on these 2-point conversions. Normally he will, maybe be batting about 50%, 500, if you will, to complete the analogy. They're not converting any of these 2-point conversions, and it's really going to – it's costing them. It has cost them, and it almost cost them last night. So I think he's got to reevaluate some of his decision-making. And, look, something else that was overlooked. He was late getting that challenge. That's another thing. That's on the coach. You got to make those decisions a little faster.
Yeah, absolutely. My frustration with Doug Pederson and Carson Wentz as a whole, both of them, is the inconsistency. They show spots of greatness, and then they show spots of failure, and that's very frustrating. But how about Boston Scott? We talk about this Carson Wentz throw, which is unbelievable, but that was a hell of a catch. And overall, he's had so much success against the Giants specifically.
Yeah, first of all, you have, and that's what I was going to say to you initially was, now let's see Boston Scott doing it against some other team not named the Giants. But it was he provided a good spark, ran between the tackles well. But you're right. That catch was, that was highlight reel material for sure. Reminded me of the one that Miles Sanders made that was a very, you want to call it a high level of difficulty catch in Washington last year. And Boston Scott, look, they needed him to step up, and he did. And quite frankly, I wonder again why they didn't run the ball a little bit more with what he was doing when they had the lead, even when it was 10-7. But, I thought Boston Scott did a really good job. I liked what I saw out of him. And now with a little bit of rest, will he be able to do it again next week? Will Miles Sanders potentially be back? Who knows? And I know this wasn't in my grades, but I thought Huntley did a good job as well with what he provided in the ground game.
Scott Grayson. Grayson's grades are up at 97.3 ESPN.com. One guy we've talked a little bit about here today, you gave an F, and that was Jake Elliott. I mean, he misses the 29-yarder. There has been a lot of questions about Elliott. In fact, Doug was asked about him last night. He was asked about him again today. Now, a lot of it's because he had been missing the long ones, but that 29-yarder, he's missed a couple of field goals in back-to-back weeks that really ended up hurting their opportunities to win the game.
Absolutely. I mean, you play that game out from the moment he kicked that ball. If they go into the locker room having just put 3 points on the board, it's 13-7. Does New York still have quite as much of a fight? Yeah, probably. But the way that the rest of the game played out, that miss loomed really large. And, look, I'm all for it. I put this in the grades. I understand you're not going to be perfect. I'm asking my kickers, anything 40 and in, you got to make in the NFL. That was 29, and it had no shot from the moment it left his foot. You could see it was going left. And that, to me, is a problem. It's something they're going to have to fix. And you got to start asking yourself if Elliott's the guy. Look, he can miss an extra point. He's done that occasionally in the past. He has made some big kicks for them. And I'm not saying they need to move on from him, but I think there's got to be a little bit of soul-searching going on with Elliott and to ask himself, am I doing everything I can to make sure I'm ready to kick that ball when it's time? I think that needed to serve as a wake-up call last night. And we'll watch moving forward whether or not it does. But that was a big kick. It's got to be made. That is a must-make. And for that, he got an F.
You gave Jim Schwartz a D. I'm torn with the defense because they did create a couple turnovers. Jalen Mills, Josh Sweat got his hand in there, and, of course, Brandon Graham. But at the same time, that 97-yard touchdown drive can't happen, and that 80-yard run by Jones can't happen. So it's like just like I said with Doug Pederson and Carson Wentz, very inconsistent.
Yeah, and I put this in there. This continues to be my problem with this defense. Look, I can live in the past with Jim Schwartz giving up some plays, giving up yardage, but not giving up touchdowns. And that's what I liked about this defense in the past. They bent but didn't break. This defense is clearly bending and breaking. If not for the sniper that got Daniel Jones, that was easily a long touchdown run that totally not only flipped the field but turned into points, and eventually it did. The big plays are troublesome. It's clearly some sort of a communication breakdown with the guys that are allowing those kind of big chunk yardage plays to happen. Cre'Von LeBlanc, this to me, I'm starting to pin more and more on Jim Schwartz. You see it with every corner that plays here. The failure to turn around and play the ball. They're grabbing at arms. There's all this kind of, physical, connections being made while the ball's in the air. It's an easy call for the official. The one thing that makes an official have to second-guess whether or not to throw the flag is if there's a little bit of contact with the defender, turns around, faces the ball at the last moment, and actually makes a play on it. These guys don't do it. I'm tired of seeing that, and that continues to draw flags and make it harder on your defense to keep the opponent out of the end zone. Look, you gave up 21 points to the Giants last night, to Daniel Jones and the Giants. They're giving up 30 a game. At least they were going into that game. This is a problem. Too many points. And Jim Schwartz, you hold those touchdowns, even one or two of them, to field goals, it's a totally different game. And that's my biggest problem with his defense right now.
Scott Grayson's grades are up right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. Take a look at the full list of grades for all of the players that he graded last night. One other guy I want to get to, Derek Barnett. He had the big game against San Francisco, then he had been kind of invisible, and then he had some flashes last night. I thought the defensive line played pretty well. Barnett had a pretty good game. You gave him a B last night, but it's almost like, what is Barnett? Is he just an average guy? I mean, have we come up with what Derek Barnett? He was a first-round pick they traded up to get. That was a while back now. I mean, 4 years in, what is this guy?
Yeah, that is a great question. To me, I feel like he's following the trajectory of a career that Brandon Graham has had, where you just kept waiting and waiting and waiting. There'd be a flash here and there of what he could be, and it never got put together. And then finally, Graham turned into that guy that you needed to pay. Barnett has shown you flashes. He's never, you have to wonder all the time, is he totally healthy? And I feel like he's getting healthier this season, and you're starting to see some of the benefit of that. I really like when he's healthy. This guy's move right off the line is quick. It's efficient. He took advantage of a weaker player last night when he was lined up against Thomas, and he was able to get into the backfield. Now you got to finish the play. That's the last part of the thing that Barnett needs to take his game to the next level. Once you get there, finish the play, and that means if the quarterback gets rid of the ball, make it a good hit, legitimate, not drawing a flag kind of hit. And if he doesn't get rid of the ball, finish the sack. You got to get that guy down. And I agree with you. I like what I see out of Barnett at times, but just like Carson Wentz when I was talking about him, man, you got to put it together. You got to put it together for at least 3 quarters, and 4 would be great.
Yeah, he's a frustrating guy. Could you imagine, though, if you're the Giants, you have the 4th pick in the draft, and that's the guy you took, and the way he looked last night, that's discouraging to say, man, we spent a top 5 pick on that guy last night. He was pretty bad. Their line stinks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Eagles on the other side spent a pick on Andre Dillard, and they haven't really gotten to see what he can do yet either.
That Dillard thing's going to be interesting because Mailata, Doug insinuated today that we might keep him there. We'll talk about it, but I think Peters is going to go back to guard because they like Mailata, which means what's the future hold for a guy you traded up to get in Dillard? I think that's going to be a very interesting story playing out for next season. But man, this season here has been an ugly one. No Dillard, no Peters, no Johnson, no Sayamala, no Brandon Brooks. I mean, you're going to get this line is probably going to have some more injury problems throughout the year. It's been ugly, but Grayson's great. Check him out, 97.3 ESPN.com. Don't forget Fox 29, Props and Locks. The guys were on last night before the Eagles game, and, of course, Grayson's grades after every Eagles game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Scott, appreciate it. Have a good weekend, man.
Thank you. You guys, too.
All right. Like all guests appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Grayson's Grades are brought to you by Cross County Connection, the region's transportation management association. They're dedicated to improving the quality of life in South Jersey through transportation solutions. Learn more at Cross County Connection online at driveless.com.